that God became faithful to the promise that he made to Abraham.
Katonda ye muntu atasinze okubeera omwesigwa era tulaga nti tulabye nti Katonda yali mwesigwa eri ebisuubizo bya Abulahamu.
When God promised Abraham that you will be a father of nations,
Katonda bwe yasuubiza Abulahamu nti ogenda kubeera kitaawe w'amawanga,
it did not occur to him how. He did not understand how. Because at this moment Abraham was old. He was advanced. And Sarah, his wife, was also old. And they had gotten old without a kid, without a child. And so when God is talking about Abraham being a father of nations, it was something unbelievable. But God lived his word until Isaac was born, and the process continued. And so God kept his word. And that makes him a faithful God. And that's one of the qualities that we need to understand. Many times, even for us as Christians, we get messages from the Lord. It could be a prophecy, it could be a dream, it could be a communication direction. But when you get the message, you say, but I'm not sure about it. But if you know that is God who has talked to you, then you should just be sure that it will happen. Because God by nature is not a liar. So when we look at God is called to us to be holy like him. God is called to us to be holy like him. Makes us to examine those qualities of God. Who is God and what is he? Yes. It therefore means that righteousness, that holiness means living in righteousness all the time. In all aspects of our lives, in word, thought, and deed. Holiness actually should be a way of life. It is not just like maybe obeying or this law and the other. No. Holiness is a way of life. And once we make it a way of life, it becomes. But if we make it like it is an issue to do with obeying certain regulations, then we find it hard. The subject of holiness is increasingly becoming rare. It's rare in our lives and also rare in the church teaching. People are not looking at this issue. We are now in the era of, I don't know who knows about it. We are now in the gospel of prosperity. That is what the in thing, prosperity gospel. So for you, it's talking about holiness. You are behind the scene. So people are on prosperity gospel. And that makes the holiness bit to disappear. We want to see God doing something. And we forget that we have to do our part first. And that is what makes the whole thing a sham. It makes the whole thing a sham. It is yes. Holiness is widely taught and talked about in the Bible. Both in the Old Testament and the New Testament. If you critically examine the Bible, you will definitely see that there is a lot to do with holiness. Right from the book of Genesis, you remember Adam and Eve? When you see the instruction God gave them, it was simply that you are free to move all around there, except this. Do not go in that tree. That tree at the center of the garden, don't dare. It was simple for Adam to avoid that. But he put in reasoning. He wanted to reason out God. He should have just obeyed without reasoning and would have been. But we see that that was the beginning of God wanting man to be holy. But man himself failed the test. In all these books, if we go reading them one by one, in this from Genesis up to the book of Revelation, all of them emphasize holiness. And so holiness is the most widely taught topic in the Bible. But it's important that for us as Christians, again, when we are reading it, we don't understand what it's talking about. We take them as stories. Like you see a lullaby. You just hear it and pass it. Lullaby, these songs that you sing for the baby to sleep. Yeah. That's how we see. When we read these stories, they just come and pass. And they make us to snore. So we don't pay much attention about it. And yet, in all these texts, the emphasis God wants is holiness in man. Because He wants man to relate with you. If you cannot relate with God, and so He wants us to move to a certain level, a certain level of holiness. And that's when we can now interact with God freely. And for sure, without holiness, we cannot move with God. We shall examine all these things. And maybe, of course, bit by bit. In the Old Testament, for instance, in Leviticus 18, in Leviticus, the book of Leviticus, chapter 18, we see God instructing Moses to speak to the children of Israel. Yes, let's get this. Leviticus 18, 1 to 5.
Yogera n'abaana ba Isirayiri bagambe nze Mukama Katonda wammwe ng'ebikolwa bwebiri eby'omu nsi ey'e Misiri gye mwatuulanga temukolanga bwe mutyo era ng'ebikolwa bwebiri eby'omu nsi ya Kanani gye ndibatuusaamu temukolanga bwe mutyo so temutambuliranga mu mateeka gaabwe. Emisango gyange gye muba mukolanga n'amateeka gange gye muba mwekuumanga okubitambulirangamu. Nze Mukama Katonda wammwe. Kale mwekuumenga amateeka gange n'emisango gyange, ebyo omuntu bw'anaabikolanga anaabanga mulamu olw'ebyo nze Mukama.
In English it reads, the Lord said to Moses, speak to the Israelites and say to them, I am the Lord your God. You must not do as they do in Egypt, where you used to live. And you must not do as they do in the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you. Now, here God is instructing Moses to go and speak to the children of Israel. Because they want to move already. They have left Egypt. They are now in the desert. And say, God is saying to them, do not do as you used to do in Egypt. There are many things that the children of Israel used to do in Egypt. And it is the way you see here that they got involved even in the worshipping of idols. Because the Egyptian gods were not living gods. Egyptian gods were man-made gods. You know, that is what you people should understand, that maybe for us who know God, the living God. But many parts of the world do not know God. They model something and call it a God. And it works for them. And they can begin worshipping something and it works for them. So you've heard of a cow being God. You can model something like a sculpture. And it becomes God. So anything that they would think about and agree, it becomes God. Those are the things God is cautioning. Is cautioning the children of Israel that do not do like they used to do in Egypt. Forget about those things that you used to do in the past. And of course it applies to all of us as Christians. That we used to do certain things when we were in the world. We used to flow together with them. We used to do certain things. We used to go to the shrines. We used to go to worship idols of all kinds. And you know, I'm surprised that even up to now people, you know, even educated people, they put some charms here. In the pajamas. Don't look at those people and you think they are really those who are educated and they don't know those things. Even our politicians. And I think those are the worst. They are educated but they cannot understand where the true God is. They don't know who is the true God. And so they still move in that zigzag. God is telling the children of Israel, do not do as they used to do. Not do even what you used to do in Egypt. And then he cautions them again, even where I'm taking you. In Canaan. That is the from his land. You know, they have not yet reached. But he's cautioning them. He knows what is there. Now, Canaan was not a free land that was vacant and therefore waiting. It was not waiting for the children of Israel. There were some few people already. But God had a plan to make sure the children of Israel settled there and He would edge out those ones. And so He's warning the children of Israel that even there where I'm taking you, do not do anything like this. Do not copy anything that they are doing. Now here what is God trying to do? He's trying to make these children of Israel distinct. To make them separate from the world. They should not be of the world where they should not belong to the previous world and should not belong. He wants them to be distinct. And because of that, He gives them certain guidelines. God wanted the children of Israel to be completely different from their neighbors. And so many of the things that you'll be reading as we go through them, especially in the book of Leviticus, you'll find a lot of things. There is a time, and this is where God is talking about food. What to eat and what not to. And so it describes certain foods. And some, and it says this is clean, this is unclean. For instance, he goes to animals and says any animal which has no hooves, that one is unclean. So it would mean, therefore, that other people would eat it. It is something edible, according to what you were saying. If you read that, it means when you see God regulating against don't eat this, it means but He wants you not to do it so that you can remain distinct. You stand out, you are separate, because He wants you to be of a different culture. Now the children of Israel up to now are still very elusive. They have got their own cultures and traditions. I do not know whether it's easier to learn in their language. Because somebody told me when they came to rescue the here in Entebbe. The Israelites who came to rescue their fellow Israelites who had been kidnapped. They did not use English, they used their own language. And found people parked standing in somewhere closer. So the only way they could know who is the enemy and who is not. So they spoke in Hebrew. And says, sit down everybody. So those who understood the Hebrew, they sat. Those who remained standing. So they were easy to eliminate. So there is a way that God had prepared the children of Israel. The nation of Israel, as we shared earlier, was supposed to be a role model. A model to other nations. So that the world could see from these people and say, could learn something and say, hey, that was God's plan. But as you know, the devil fights of human beings and fights God's plans. So once the human being accepts the devil's plans, it means you have accepted to fight God's plans. And so therefore you find that the children of Israel let down the will of God, the plan of God. But God had given them clear guidelines. And He wanted them to live a separate life in every sense. Because I have like told you that even food was regulated. You say food, you should be this and this. If it is this, don't go here. So He had given them guidelines so that they live a life that is distinct. He regulates on what to eat, for instance, in that Leviticus 11. Let's look at 11, what is saying Leviticus 11. From verse 1. Verse 1.
Mukama n'ayogera ne Musa nti n'ayogera ne Musa n'Alooni ng'abagamba nti mugamba abaana ba Isirayiri nti bino bye biramu bye munaalyanga ku nsolo zonna eziri ku nsi. Buli ekyawula ekinuulo era ekirina ekigere ekyaseemu era ekizza obwenkulumu mu nsolo ekyo kye mulyanga. Naye bino bye mutalyanga ku ebyo ebizza obwenkulumu oba ku ebyo ebyawulamu ekinuulo. Engamira kubanga ezza obwenkulumu naye teyawula mu kinuulo. Eyo si nnongoofu gye muli n'omusu kubanga buzza obwenkulumu naye tegwawula mu kinuulo. Ogwo si mulongoofu gye muli. N'akamyu kubanga kazza obwenkulumu naye tekawula mu kinuulo. Ako si kalongoofu gye muli. N'embizzi kubanga eyawulamu ekinuulo era erina ekigere ekyaseemu naye tezza bwenkulumu. Eyo si nnongoofu gye muli. Ku nnyama yazo temulyangako, so n'emirambo gyazo temugikomangako. Si nnongoofu gye muli.
Buli mwana wa Isirayiri yenna yagonderanga kino.
You don't eat the food that was prohibited.
Tolya mmere yakugaanibwa.
You don't go where you are not supposed to.
Togenda w'otalina kugenda.
You are definitely good books with God.
Akati awo wali olina kutambula bulungi na Katonda.
By obeying that, then you are okay. So we look at this as God's purpose or plan. God's plan to make man holy. Some of the regulations, some of the things do not make sense. With God, you just have to obey. Because if you go in asking Him, but now this is all meat. You have cow meat, then there are small animals, the short one. Now again you are saying this one is not meat. You don't have to reason like that, just say, what